up, everybody? You're listening to another episode of Life is Blurry with your host, Sheikh Chatterjee, and
co-host
and my co-host, Emily Wilson. And we are joined today by the wonderful Bismah Ahmed, who is currently Miss DC for America. She recently competed in Miss America. And honestly, there's so much more. I would love it, Bismah, if you could, only because your resume is so impressive, if you could just run us through some of the many, many projects you're involved in right now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sheikh and Emily. I'm so excited to be on. So I'm also the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Apartment and Office Building Association. So I've been in politics for the past decade, which is, so like two different worlds colliding, but it's been like, yeah. But it's been a whirlwind. It hasn't even been a full year yet. And I met you guys at Miami Swim Week, right? And that was new for me. I walked in New York Fashion Week, just so many cool experiences. But, in DC, politics is such a different ballgame.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is everybody involved in politics in some way just from living in DC? Is it kind of like an unavoidable part of living there?
It kind of is. So you're like either a consultant, a government consultant, or you're in politics. It's such a just heavy network of those, the kind of people. And especially on the Hill, everybody's working for a senator, a legislative aide, something like that. So I work in Virginia, so I do a lot of the state politics. We do federal on occasion, but I focus heavily on housing policy. So anything housing, the choice voucher, really anything business related. So it could be like taxes, utility, energy, you name it.
Gotcha.
So can you go into the so with housing, are you trying to help out with affordable housing? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I'm pretty sure Miami has the same problem, but DC is so unaffordable. It's absolutely nuts, right? So one of the biggest things that we're working on is creating a housing choice voucher program on the state level. And actually, we were successful in getting $50 million kind of in that draft budget last year. And so it didn't get approved, but we're trying to get that money allocated for making a statewide housing choice voucher program. The federal program does not work well. If you want to get that voucher, we've heard it takes years on some levels. So it's absolutely insane.
Well, that's fantastic. I just want to point out something that is just really impressive to me. Here you are, Miss DC, and you're running for a beauty pageant, which clearly you're beautiful. For those that are listening and not able to see, Bismah is gorgeous. She certainly looks the part. But it's just surprising to me that you're also so charitable in your time and what you do and what you're passionate about. So it kind of just says to me that maybe beauty pageants have changed, at least from my understanding. And Emily probably has a better understanding than me, or at least a different one.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, I've definitely always kind of followed Miss USA just a little bit. And I have seen, it change over the years, and especially over the past decade or so, that there's such a focus on you have to be a jack of all trades. Like you have to be involved in politics. You have to have some sort of philanthropy. You have to, have some sort of a business background or something, whether it's philanthropy, business, politics, etc. You have to be very well-rounded. So congratulations. I know it's really, really competitive, and it's only getting more competitive, as time goes on. I was also going to ask you kind of, how did you originally even get into politics? Like what brought you to DC in the first place? What got you involved in the Miss USA?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's like one of the most common questions I get. So I was actually going to be a teacher, an English teacher. So in undergrad, I studied English, and then my uncle is heavily in politics. So he was like, "Do you want to work for this delegate?" And I was like, "Okay, like why not just try something new?" I didn't know anything about the legislative process or, totally new to the whole thing. But I was like, it'd be a cool experience. Ended up loving it. I ended up loving like how a bill becomes a law. It goes to the House of Delegates and the Senate, and the governor has to sign it into law. I mean, the whole process was so cool because you're changing millions of people's lives, right? And so then I worked for the Attorney General, Mark Herring, and then Governor McAuliffe in Virginia, former governor. And then I was like, you know what? I want to get into lobbying. And, because once a politician is out of office, you're also out of a job. So, right, it's just a little bit more stable. And so I knew housing policy because my dad is a real estate investor. And so he knows housing. I grew up around it. And then I got this job 7 years ago, blessed to be the vice president of government affairs now. But, it was such a process. And then when I got into the Miss DC pageant, I mean, that was totally out of the realm for me. But then, with COVID, I think a lot of people, and myself too, right? I felt like, why not? Why not just try something new? Why not do something new? Like, I feel like time is limited, life is short. Like, just do it. And
you had no plans to get into beauty, and it kind of happened through the process of government. Like,
yeah, it didn't even happen through the process of government. It just kind of popped up. And my friends were like, hey, you should do this thing. I was like, okay, so there's this huge deposit when you apply. And I was so on the fence about it. My friend actually clicked the button and he was like, all right, you're doing this, right? And so I was like, all right, now we're doing this. I have no choice.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, right? And it's so funny where life takes you. But it's honestly what we were talking about, Emily. The women that you meet are so incredible. I'm talking, healthcare professionals, lawyers. I met somebody in Miss America that was, she was a professional athlete. Like, she traveled all around the world playing basketball. Like, it's incredible. A lot of them started nonprofits. I mean, it's insane. I am so impressed.
Right. And I would say that I know that, Shake doesn't follow, it as much as I do, but it's not even a beauty pageant anymore. Like, it has nothing to do with that, I don't think. I think that obviously, everyone is so beautiful, that's part of it, but it's not about your looks pretty much at all at that point. It's literally about what you're doing for the good of the, everyone's involved somehow in, philanthropy and the good of the United States. I think a lot of people are involved in government that are on there because obviously you're running for your state, so you're somehow involved in that state, whether it's local, super local politics, or whether, et cetera. But I think it's really, really interesting just how much it's changed. And for you, I know you have your MBA as well. So it's really about, what you've accomplished and what you're working on at the time, and then kind of what your future goals are. And I know that you talk about all those three things, as part of the pageant. What's it like? Because I know that it just happened. So can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? And
is it like Miss Congeniality? Because that is a hilarious movie, but that is really my only real understanding of what a pageant's like. So yeah, like Emily was asking, we want to know what it's like. What's the process like? What's a day in the life of Bismah like during?
So we were in Vegas for like a week and a half, right? So a week before the actual pageant, all the girls are in Vegas. We have dinners every single night, getting glammed up. We did a photo shoot in like the Valley of Fire and the desert. It was really cool. All these awesome experiences. We had special guests. It was just such a bonding experience. And I think that has to be one of the greatest takeaways from this whole thing. Just getting that like one-on-one time with all the girls from every state. And then obviously like the routines that we did for the actual pageant, like I had not like danced like that on stage before, but it was like really cool. And then, you have those interviews before the actual pageant that it's not aired or anything, but that was where I thrive, right? I love talking to people, especially like different personalities. It was just like, oh, like there are no more judges left, but you only get like 4 minutes with them. So it's definitely like, all right, condense everything you want to say into this little bubble, and like hopefully the time doesn't run out. But it's a lot of fun, and it's like lighthearted. They ask some hard questions, but you gotta know what you were talking about, right? So, and then the actual pageant, honestly, I thought the nerves were going to get me, but it's just so much fun. It's
Okay.
really so much fun.
Wow. And are
Yeah.
you allowed to bring, like, family or friends with you? Are there people in the audience, or is it taped for an audience still?
Yeah, there are people in the audience, friends and family come out, which is like, it's more fun, right? So they'll run up, around stage and kind of like congratulate you. And honestly, I was so when they're calling top 15, and I didn't even know this was a thing, right? Because it's so new to me. It's like such a big deal. Everybody's been like, oh my God, like, are they going to call me? Are they going to call me? So when they called me, I was just like in awe because you never, at that point, it's like just, you want to be hopeful, but you don't want to like break your heart,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm so grateful that I made top 15 in my first pageant. Even just making that national
Impressive.
competition, it was a really, really cool experience, I
So
gotta say.
I have a question. Um, how is it with the other girls?
Yeah,
Are you guys all cool with each other? Is there some cattiness that's going on? I mean, this is a competitive environment, by anyone's judgment, right? I mean, these are all pretty girls. Maybe, I like to get into psychology a little bit, just like who are these people that maybe they were probably the prettiest girl of their friend, you know,
yeah,
maybe the smartest girl from their graduating class. Like these are all alpha females.
right.
So I'm just curious if people are nice to each
It's so funny. I get that question so often, but literally, I mean, I can't emphasize it so much. When people say it's a sisterhood, it really is. I mean, a lot of those girls now are my best friends,
wow. And you're
and
not just saying that.
I'm not just saying that. Like
No, you're
I
not
went to New
competing
York
right
Fashion
now,
Week so
you can be honest here.
no, really though. I mean, people want the best for themselves. They want to win. Everybody wants to win. But when you get to know these girls on a personal level, it's like, wow, I want you to win. And I know that sounds crazy, but really you develop such a sisterhood. I went to New York Fashion Week last weekend with a couple girls, and there's nothing but love. It's
Yeah, and I think it's just such a great network of women too, and such an
Yep,
empowering thing now. And I have been following, like we said, a much more closely than Shake has. And I think some people still have these stigmas that they think it's like a beauty contest when it's
yep,
totally different now. It's literally about, what you're contributing to society and women and feminism. And it's really, really
absolutely.
cool. I was going to ask you too, were you born and raised in the DC area? And is that how you kind of like originally got into kind of like DC, Virginia politics? Or did you move?
Yeah, what's your background?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I was born in Virginia. I grew up in Richmond, and then I came to DC 7 years ago. So
Okay.
that's where my office is. And honestly, one of the best parts about representing DC is that you can talk about international issues too, right? Because DC is like,
In DC, yeah.
it's the capital of the nation, right? So I can go on TV and talk about like, different things happening. One of the biggest things that I talk about is mental health. But then outside of that, it's all of the issues that are going on. And I work in politics, so I follow them closely. But it's and I want to talk about them. So this gives me that platform. And it was just what you were talking about, Emily. It's like more than a beauty pageant. It's about the issues, about supporting your community, about representation.
Mhm.
And DC
Absolutely.
is so diverse, and
And I
so
think that
yeah.
yeah, and I think that something that's even better about it is that even when you're, no longer Miss DC, it stays with you for the rest of your life and career. Like
Absolutely.
I was over towards like, Southwest Florida. It was called Boca Gorda this weekend or Punta Gorda this weekend. And a boat passed by and it said something about Miss Florida. And my friend Shannon's parents said, "Oh yeah, that's Miss Florida. She was Miss Florida in, this year to this year, and she's
Yeah,
still really involved in our local politics now and does
Love that.
so much for our
I
community.
love
And
that.
she's on, the board of everything in their town." And so I think it's really cool what you then, you bring that title with you, moving forward
And
too.
you're a role model for the rest of your
Mhm.
life. And
Absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
part of what goes into this if you're this sort of person. I personally I don't know if I could be a role model like that, you know, just to be very honest, because there's a lot of things that I feel like I end up doing that I'm like, I'm living on the edge and having
Right.
a great time doing it. I don't know if I would recommend that to the
Right.
future, but for you, it's like they're looking up to you. They want to be you,
Mm-hmm.
Um, tell me about, your experiences with mentorship and what you're trying to do for the future generations who want to
Hmm.
be where you're at.
Absolutely. So one thing that I've always been really big on is giving back, right? So a year ago during COVID, I was living in Puerto Rico, and when I was coming back, that's when we were pulling out of the Afghanistan war, right? So um, actually, my roommate in Puerto Rico, and she's one of my best friends. She's Afghan, so her family was trying to get out of Afghanistan at that point, and it was virtually impossible, especially if you didn't have just thousands and thousands of dollars laying around, right? So we ended up raising $18,000 to get our family out of
Wow.
Afghanistan in a matter of like 3 weeks, maybe less. But that really inspired me to create the Color Collective Gala, and it happened actually last month. But the the basis behind it was to give back to refugees in the area, especially Afghan refugees. And now I'm turning it into a nonprofit. So just as you were
Okay.
talking about, Emily, it's like something that I'm going to continue. And it's this reign allowed me that platform. It allowed, celebrities to come out, politicians to come out, people from, all ranges of, backgrounds and ages came out. And it was just so successful. It just even bringing the community together, if anything. And
We
so
were about
now,
to come out.
I
We were getting
know.
ready.
yeah.
What do we have that weekend?
I
So
know.
you
There
guys
was
had something, yeah. I don't remember what it was, but
oh,
next
We were in
year.
Chicago for a wedding.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
the
yeah.
Ah, that's
wedding.
what it was. Okay,
You're
okay.
doing it again next year, right? So we would love to be there.
Yes, yes. So like, I mean, it's so incredible because so many high up people, like politicians, were like, I want to be on your board of directors next year. I want to, do this and that because I mean, this does give you such a big platform to give back. And so, if anybody was looking to do something like this and give back to the community, honestly, that I mean, this is such a great way to do it. And it's like you were saying, Emily, it's more than a beauty pageant. It's more than just posting some cute Instagrams. You can really give back in such a meaningful way. So that really has been the biggest takeaway for me.
You can reach a lot of people. You do reach a
Yep.
lot of people.
Yep.
Here's a logistical question I have. So you grew up near DC. So it makes perfect sense that you were able to kind of attain or at least even compete for the Miss DC title. How does that work as far as you being in your state? Like, do you have to be there for a certain amount of years? Do you have to be born in a certain place?
Mm.
I
Absolutely. So one of the biggest, every time I get, some TV coverage or, something like that, I talk about my platform, which has been mental health. There are a lot of things that kind of come up, but I think mental health has been the biggest issue for me. And it really just kind of stems from my family background. Basically, my dad had a lot of substance abuse issues, mental health issues growing up. So we were kind of from going from rehab to rehab, and it was really, really rough. And so I think having that background really, said to me, hey, listen, I'm representing the nation's capital and the nation as a whole. And, when you look at the statistics, it's like 1 in 4 adults are diagnosed with some mental health, diagnosis. And so why is it such a stigma? I mean, I think it's getting better with our generation, but why is there such a stigma behind it, right? So it's been a huge platform of mine, and I think that we're talking about it, which is great. We need to be talking about it more, but with my personal experiences, it's been, and I just started talking about it recently, but I think it's been such a big influence on uh, my life and how I live life, and when we need to get therapy, we should get therapy. When we need to do, certain things, it's just like your physical health, right? Like when you sprain your ankle, you go to the doctor. But like, why do we not have that kind of emphasis with our mental health? It's
No,
something that I think we're getting better at, but we need to
that's a,
talk about
it's a
it.
great point. It's a great point. And talking about it and being comfortable, having conversations about it is the first step, honestly, to kind of normalizing getting that kind of help. I mean, just like you said, nobody would ever question going to the doctor right away for a physical ailment, but the mental ailments kind of get put on the back burner a lot of times. And I'm glad you brought this up because even though our platforms are very different, mental health is a topic that I've opened up about over the past year or so myself. I personally suffer from depression and anxiety, and it's something that the symptoms were there for a long, long, long time. And it wasn't until I was working an awful, awful, awful job on the south side of Chicago. As you know, I'm a veterinarian, but
Hmm.
I was seeing dogs get shot and stabbed, and
Oh
owners
my
coming
God.
in and not paying for their bills after we put our heart and soul into
Jeez.
taking care of their pets. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I was actually still working there at the time of filming Love Is Blind,
Oh my God.
which was challenging to come home from a day like that to having to film a scene or in some cases walk into some questionable scenarios
Oh God.
with my ex-fiance from the show, some really questionable scenarios. But I ultimately did get the help I needed, um, and it's just incredible that getting on the right medication or having the outlet to get your emotions out to somebody who's trained to listen to you and give you the appropriate feedback, how much of uh, a burden is removed from your life, you
Oh my
know?
God. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you went and got that help because it's, when you don't, it's like you're killing yourself in your mind. You're
Yeah.
really, it is such a dilemma. And I remember the first time that I went to therapy, it was the same thing where, sometimes we need the professional to ask the right questions, right? So like
Mhm.
I know I got certain questions about my background and it was like, okay, so because this happened to you in your past, this is why you may do this, right? And so I was like, what? I've never thought about it like that, right? And
Right.
so you need a professional to tell you that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually coined a term that maybe you might choose to use since I know you speak about the subject quite a bit. So I just thought about um, how over the years, how many things I missed out on, so many opportunities or relationships or just experiences of my life that I never gave a chance or even took the smallest step towards because of the anxiety and then, the
Hmm.
symptoms of depression as well that
Yeah.
were kind of controlling me. So, sometimes when I talk about it, I refer to it as the anxiety tax. So what tax did your anxiety, your depression, or whatever? What tax did you pay throughout your life? You know how when you pay taxes, a chunk of your income is gone. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
where did that go? But at least with your taxes, you're getting roads and like police officers and things like that. With the
Right.
anxiety tax, you're not. You're just losing that, right?
Hmm.
So, I hope by putting it that way, it helps people understand that, yeah, once you get the help, you're opening yourself up to love,
Yep.
to happiness, to, maybe a better job, to, just better people around you. But the first thing you got to do is get the help.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, uh, something that, maybe this is kind of what you were talking about, but one thing that I think that has really helped me, and, it's really three words, it's recycling your pain, right? So, what will you do with your pain? Are you going to let it break you or are you going to let it redefine you, right? Because of, like, for example, the experiences that I went through with my dad were so traumatizing that I felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt like I was at this point, I can either just break down or I can use it as, hey, like I see what my parent has become. Like, I want to not be that, right? And so that is the route that I took.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
it was sometimes, it takes, crawling inch by inch every day. And even if you are crawling on the floor, and even if nobody can see what you're going through every single day, if you are slowly making it and you don't quit, eventually you're going to make it. And
Mhm.
that pit is going to be your biggest testimony, right? Like, your lowest point is going to be your greatest testimony. And
Mhm.
so that is how I feel now,
Mhm.
right?
That's great.
Absolutely. And I think it's like so much putting a face to it as well. Cause I think that for me growing up, I, just there was so much shame around just having feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't anyone's fault, but I think that, you know, it was just like, okay, you're sad, something's wrong with you. Why are you so
Yeah.
sad all the time? And, I'm not diagnosed with anxiety or depression, but do I think I've had definitely spells of anxiety and depression throughout my life and
It's
years?
normal. Yeah.
Of course I have.
Yeah.
And I do look back and think if I had the tools a little bit more to have dealt with those things way sooner, I think, even just little things like not little things, but things like as a kid, I had such social anxiety that I
Yeah.
would always get a lower grade on participation in class because and that affects your grades, that
Yeah.
affects your high school transcript even.
Mhm.
Growing up and elementary, middle school, high school, I always got a low participation grade
You were shy or
because
anxious?
I would literally break out into hives raising my hand in class because
Oh
I
Oh my
didn't want to
God.
give the wrong answer. And I just felt so like I would like start crying like I felt like I was
Wow.
gonna I had the
yeah.
fight or flight response
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically. And luckily, I was able to work through all that. And I think I'm so rah about, I went to Boston College and I'm
Yeah.
so rah about it. But it's because that's when I came out of my shell for the first time. And it was
Mhm.
the most life changing thing I have ever been through. And that's why I'm like obsessed with where I went to school
Yeah.
because I just want more people to have that kind of experience.
Mhm.
Um, and being in those classrooms, I was like getting the highest participation grade. And I was taking public speaking courses
Mhm.
in college. And you're talking in front of a ton of people. And now I'm on a podcast,
Look at you.
and
Yeah. I was just gonna say, look at you now. Like,
and
you're
I
on a podcast. It's so
putting more faces to it, I think it's
yeah.
really, really helpful. And
Yeah.
that's why, like with Shake, he was very vocal about it even before we met. But I've always been extremely encouraging of him talking about it more so, even just because I
Yeah.
see how much good it can do for people.
Yeah.
So that's great that you're
Absolutely.
doing that so much, Besma. And I think that, so many, young girls, young women, and women of all ages looking up to you, and people of all ages looking up to you. I think that you're bringing, someone that maybe didn't have that exposure, like someone like me who kind of took shame in it. They're going to
Yeah.
see you being so open, and that's going to really change so many lives too.
Absolutely. And that being said, I think whenever we as humans go through something tough that really tests us, whether it's, a tragic incident, whether it's a personal struggle, like, some
Yeah.
would consider depression to be, something that really helps is to give it a purpose or a meaning in your life.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it sounds to me as though what you did is the same as what, I've often tried to do.
Right.
I say those things happen to me so I could help others not make the same mistakes as me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you and I suffered through that so we could help others suffer less. And that's kind of a dramatic way
Absolutely.
of putting it, but at the same time, I truly believe that. Just
Yeah.
another reason I
No,
feel
I
that,
completely agree. I mean, and it's all about what are you going to do with what you have? So, like what you were just talking about, that understanding of, we went through this. So, what are you going to do with what you have? And, sometimes it's not how much you have, some people have kindness, some people have love, some people have patience, some people have money, but what are you going to do with what you have? And, you've been through something, so you want to share that, helpfulness, that love, and, just understanding with people. And I think that's so
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely, and I actually didn't even tell Sheikh about this because I barely saw him when he got home, but,
Yeah.
today I was literally just sitting having a coffee down the street and getting work done on my laptop, and someone probably in his, like, 30s just came up to me and said, and you could tell he was really shy, and he just said, "Hey, I have this YouTube channel that I film people around Miami for, like, 5 minutes and just, show them, just ask them a few questions. It's like a Humans of New York type of a
Oh, I
thing.
love that. Yeah.
And he said, I used to have such bad social anxiety that I couldn't talk to anyone. And this is
Oh,
actually something
wow.
I started during COVID. Oh my gosh, your cat is so
Thank you. There he is.
so
Hi, buddy.
love.
Let's look at intro. Who is that?
Yeah.
Oh, so this is Siri. He's my COVID kitty. He's
Oh,
so he's a Bengal cat. So he's half South Asian leopard cat, right? So you can see his like little spots and stuff on there.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, buddy.
cute. Look at his eyes.
Yeah. So
Listen here, Puff. He's your little Puff boy.
We
he
call him
really is. Okay. All right. Let me get him out of here.
Well, hey, Bismah, we're running out of time here. I did want to
Yeah.
ask you, who are some of your favorite co-contestants? Miss California, Miss Florida. Who are they? Tell us their
Yeah.
name. Tell us their names. Tell us something about them. Maybe something funny about them. They'll like the shout out.
Okay, you know what? I gotta shout out Miss Maryland. She was my roommate throughout the whole week in Vegas because everybody gets appointed to a roommate, and we became so close, like sisters,
Aw.
right? Like, and so she was behind the stage cheering me on. I was cheering her on, and we actually had like the same state pageant, right? So I've known her for so long, and I think it's so funny because we had known each other for a couple of months, and the whole time she thought my name was Bismah. And so now
What?
it's like a running joke. Like she'll call me Bismah, and like all the other girls will call me that too, just like as like a funny thing because it took her so long to know my name. But like even so, like we're so close. She's awesome. So
Oh my
shout
gosh,
out
and
Gabby.
you said you're going to Turkey? Is that for work?
Yeah. So I'll be going to Turkey actually tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So my mom's actually from Turkey. She grew up there, and so I'll be going with her and checking it out. So it'll be
Wow,
fun.
super fun.
Yeah. So
That'll
I'm
be
excited.
incredible.
Yeah. Anything you guys are up to, like coming
Well,
up?
we're headed to the Killers concert
Yeah,
Oh
tonight.
yeah, it's exciting.
You, when you're here in a few weeks.
Yeah, can't
Oh, I
wait.
know. October 1st to the 4th.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
excited.
it's a good stretch.
Yes.
Think about
Yes.
restaurants. We're right by Komodo and Gecko, the new one, Sexy Fish. We're all right up in
Oh,
the.
Sexy
right in
Fish
the
I've heard so much about, but it's so hard to get in.
Oh, we'll get in. Don't worry.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We'll go there.
But let people know, Bismah, where they can find you on socials or elsewhere.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at BISMAHAHMED. Bismah Ahmed.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, truly one of the most inspirational people I think we've had on the show. No offense to everybody else. You're all very special in your own way. Okay.
Aw.
But thank you so much, Bismah, for joining us. And for everyone listening, this has been another episode of Life is Blurry. We will see you next time.